Greeting, wild and tame souls. I'm Lucinda Bakken-White. Disclaimer before we get started. I'm here on an orchard and it's apple season. So if you hear any farm noises or refrigeration units or compressors going off, please pardon the noise. But today I want to talk about life stages. And the reason is we are all souls, spiritual beings that come down to planet Earth for a temporary human experience. And there are very specific reasons why we're here. We have lessons to learn, and we also have gifts that we're meant to share with the world to leave it a better place. So when we understand the life stages and where we're at, it helps us make sense of our life and the meaning. I'm going to break down the life stages roughly into decades. It's very generic and broad. Don't hold me to the exact numbers, but it's enough of a template that you can get a 360-degree view of your life when you see it in this way. And you can see how you mature over the decades and learn different things that help you understand how to be a human being, how to fit into society, how to master survival, shelter, food, clothing, and get to that point in your life where you've uncovered your inherent gifts and can express them as an elder and share them and leave the world a better place. So let's start at the beginning. You come down as a soul, you incarnate in a body, and you're a child. And roughly the first decade, 0 to 10 or 11, until you're a teenager, you are dependent on your parents. So you don't have 100% free will. I mean, in general, as a human being, we all have free will. We do have choices. But as a child, you do have less choices. You are dependent on your parents for survival. You are very joyful and playful and creative and free, and you're pretty pure and authentic because you've just come from the other side. Your soul is fresh. It hasn't been imprinted as much by society and cultural and conditioning. But then, as you approach being a teenager or you go through puberty, all of a sudden your hormones and your chemicals change, and your brain develops to a different stage, and you start to question your parents. When you were a child, you thought they were wonderful. You wanted to hang out with them all the time. Again, I know a lot of us didn't have the happiest childhood, but this is how it's intended to work. And if not, there was a lesson for us to learn. And as painful as it is, everything is a lesson. If we can see it that way, it will help us move through it and grow. But let's just say you had a nice childhood and you thought your parents were amazing and you wanted to hang out with them and you loved them and you relied on them. Well, when you're a teenager, you start to question and say, wait a minute, I don't believe that. I am not like that. I don't want to hang out with them. And you get a little rebellious. And so you go off and make some mistakes and get rowdy or party or run away, whatever you're going to do, but you're still under the umbrella of your parents' home, and you can come back for safety when you realize that it is a harsh world out there and that you do need your parents and they are providing you with a certain level of safety and sustenance. So it's this push-pull as a teenager where you're rebelling and then you're back, rebelling and you're back. And then when you're 18, hypothetically, you go off to the decade of your 20s, and that is the decade that I really like to emphasize, because in our modern mainstream culture, the media and our family and our parents think that when we go off to college and graduate, that we should have it all figured out. Go to the best college, get the primo job, make a lot of money, buy a house, and you're famous on Instagram overnight. But it's not that easy, and it's really not intended to be that way. The decades are a decade of learning. You are meant to make so many mistakes, but the key is to be fully aware of it. Not to feel shamed for it, not to feel like you need to be perfect, not that you need to know who you are or what you're going to be when you grow up, but to immerse in experience and feel it and track yourself. So, whether you went to college or not, it doesn't matter. This is a generic decade where hypothetically you leave your home around 18 and you're meant to go off and begin individuating. So you have these experiences, you hang out with new people, you do different things, and it may be completely different than what you were doing in your younger years. Maybe you spent a lot of time in church in your younger years, or with a political association, or a community, or a culture, or clan. Now you're going off and you're having new exposure to new experiences, and you're seeing how it feels. Does this resonate? Do I like it? No, I don't like that. Oh boy, I really blew it over here. Oh, I stumbled. Oh yes, this feels amazing. And then you look back at what you've already learned, 0 to 18, and say, okay, that doesn't work anymore. That worked when I was younger, doesn't work anymore. Oh, I like that. I like that value system, that belief. I'm gonna hang on to that one. And all these new things, no, I don't like that. Yes, I do like that. And you're weaving the fabric of your life. You're individuating. You're figuring out who you are. You're taking the best of the past, getting rid of what doesn't work for you anymore, adding in new things that you've experienced firsthand, and carrying it forward. So that by the time you're 30, again, very rough, you're now more mature. You're now more in touch with who you are. And now you're ready to learn in relationship with another person. This is another really interesting, important, and fascinating way to look at life. Everything is relationship. What is your relationship to a tree? Your dog, your mom, your dad, your friends. Well, in the 20s, so growing up, it's your relationship, it's you and the family. In the decades, it's a relationship with you and yourself. What am I learning about? And in a funny way, you're being selfish because it's all about you. When you're 30, now that's when you hypothetically would attract a partner that is more resonant with you because you've done all this work on yourself and you know more who of you are. The biological clock is ticking. You may want to have children. And so you get into a committed relationship. And then things are different because you're in relationship with this person. Maybe you're getting married. Maybe you live together. But even if you're committed and not married or living together, you're learning about yourself in relationship to this other person because you have to take them into consideration. I'm not saying you didn't have a boyfriend or girlfriend in your 20s. Again, this is just generic, what's intended, the deeper and greater lessons as we peel back and get stronger with who we are and the meaning of life. So the decade of 30s, you're in relationship with another person. And we all know that when you're living with someone, you can have a best friend and you live with them and the dynamic changes. It's the same thing in relationship with this person. You can't take off when you want anymore. You have to tell them where you're going. You have to consider their needs and vice versa. So you're learning about yourself in the mirror of your partner. And then you'll probably, a lot of people get married and have children. Now, I'd say 30s, 40s, 50s, I'm going to lump all those 3 decades into one because a lot of people do have children. And now, guess what? You are sacrificing yourself for the children because they need you and they're dependent. And you've come full circle to this moment where you were the child dependent on your parents. And now all of a sudden you see it from a different perspective. And you're like, oh, now I understand my parents more. And now you're having to sacrifice yourself. You can't be so selfish as you were in the 20s because this child or these children need you. And they depend on you for survival and protection. Now, not everybody wants to have children. Not everybody has children, and you don't have to. It's a metaphor, it's a symbol. So in this era, you might birth a business, and that's your child. It could be a pet, it could be animals, those are your children. It doesn't matter. Symbolically speaking, between 30 and 50, a lot of people are intended to birth something with this creative energy, again, metaphoric or literal, and care for it and nurture it and sacrifice. And you learn to get outside of yourself and to not be so selfish. Even though that word selfish sounds bad, it was intended in the 20s. And then we learn in relationship, and then we learn by sacrificing for something that is dependent on us. So that by the time we're 50, and so that can range, the 3 decades from 30 to 50, 30s, 40s, 50s, because if you have multiple children and they're with you for 20 years, it's more than a 20-year span. And businesses and projects, whatever. So now jump ahead, because now you're looking, what are you going to do with the second half of your life? And that is when we're meant to have higher purpose and deeper meaning. If we have paid attention to the previous decades in our life and what we're learning, We have immersed in life, and we've been aware, and we've learned something through firsthand experience. That's wisdom. And we are intended to cultivate that and share it in the last stage of our life to make the world a better place. And that can look a lot of different ways depending on what your unique gift is, what you learned, and the wisdom it is that you're going to share. So that's the 50s. Some people experience a midlife crisis because they're not really sure how to make that transition. And some of us want to go backward in time and stay forever young. But if we can transition in the decade of the 50s to the 60 marker, that marks the elder era, the last stage of life, which can last 30, 40, 50 years. And in my opinion, it's one of the most beautiful and rewarding stages because of everything that you've experienced beforehand. And you bring together all these different layers and levels and perspectives that you've had in the previous decade, and you share that inner essence and your wisdom and your gift with the world in your own unique way, which brings you great joy because that is when you're truly connected to your soul, which is a higher vibration. And that is your true authenticity. And you're serving the greater and higher good with your unique purpose. And it's something that's not always talked about in our culture because we place a very high value on youth and beauty and staying young, and we don't want to talk about aging. The body ages on purpose so that we will go inward and focus on this invisible essence, our soul, our authenticity. So that's an overview of life stages. I'm curious where you fit in. Do you feel like you're on track, ahead of the game? Or do you maybe feel better about yourself because you thought you were struggling and now you know it's all intended? You're right where you were meant to be. And you have this vision of your entire life and it gives you greater meaning, deeper purpose, and you know how you fit in. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe below and hit the notification bell if you want to be informed of the next video. See you next time.